Let us all rise as we welcome His Excellency the President. While we remain standing, we'll start with the two anthems, starting with the Kenya National Anthem, followed by the East African Anthem. The anthems. While we remain standing, allow me, Your Excellency, to invite Sheikh Salim Charo and Reverend Stanley Mutangili to lead us in a short prayer for us to begin our session. Sheikh Salim Charo.
Let's pray. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. We praise you. We seek your guidance, and we seek your help and forgiveness. We send peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all who follow his guidance. O Allah, the Lord of heavens and earth, we thank you for granting us the opportunity to gather us as a nation at this important moment, to reflect on our journey to envision the Kenya we desire beyond 2030. O Allah, grant our nation wisdom, unity, courage, guide our leaders beginning with our president and all those entrusted with public responsibility. Grant them wisdom to lead with justice, integrity, humility, and compassion, and make their decision beneficial to all Kenyans. O Allah, bless Kenya with peace and security. Protect our nation from violence, terrorism, extremism, tribalism, hatred, corruption, and every force that seeks to divide your people. Heal the wounds of the past and strengthen the bonds that unite us. O Allah, make our diversity a source of strength, not division. Bring together our communities, our faiths, our young people, our women and men, and all stakeholders in the spirit of dialogue, mutual respect, and responsibility. O Allah, bless the work of this national conversation. Grant us sincerity to listen to one another, wisdom to learn from our past, and courage to make the right choices of our future. Make Kenya a nation where justice prevails, where every person has dignity and opportunity, where our children inherit peace, prosperity, and hope, and where no community feels forgotten or excluded. O Allah, guide us towards a Kenya that is peaceful, united, and prosperous, and just. As we plan beyond 2030, help us to remember that the future is an amana, and give us the hikmah to build it responsibly for generations yet unborn. O Allah, grant us good in this world and good in the hereafter, and protect us from punishment of the fire. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Amen.
Heavenly Father, in the quietness of this morning, we thank you for giving us an opportunity to gather here as we dedicate and consecrate the grounds for the event today, where His Excellency leads us the International Convention Beyond 2030. We pray for His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and his family. We ask you, dear Lord, to bless him, to guide him, and to give him wisdom to lead this great nation to greater heights of prosperity for your own glory and honor. We thank you for the Deputy President, the Cabinet Secretaries, the Governors, the Parliament, the Senate, the Judiciary, the National Security Teams, the private sectors, our development partners, and all who are involved in governance. Heavenly Father, hold them together in good health and in good spirit to excel in the execution of the duties assigned to them. Pray that you will give Kenya to live in peace with one another, knowing we will give an account for what we do in the opportunity of serving this nation. We pray, Father, for the youth and the children of this nation, that you will give them, Father, to listen to the wise counsel from the elders and from what has happened, so that God, they will take care of the inheritance that our forefathers and us have fought for. Pray today that as we gather here, you will give us a listening ear and a heart that will uphold blamelessness, uprightness, and will shun evil. We bless your name as we invite your presence today and ask you to guide us. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
May we take our seats respectfully. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, Your Excellency, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, senior government officials, which include cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries, Council of Governors, members of Parliament and the Senate, members of the judiciary, academia, youth, civil society, captains of industry, development partners, clergy, and Kenyans from all walks of life. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me to introduce the team that is going to help us execute this conversation, where Kenya is headed beyond 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on Julie Gishuru, who is a seasoned moderator who has been driving Pan-African and global conversations on leadership and development. She is the CEO of Africa Leadership and Dialogue Institute. A clap for her, please. We also have Melody Sinzore, na ni mwanahabari tajika wa lugha la Kiswahili, anayeenzi na kukuza lugha ya Kiswahili. Pia ni muhifadhi na mwelekezi wa shughuli kwa lugha ya Kiswahili. Tumpigie makofi tafadhali. We also have Mark Masai, a journalist that is passionate to speak truth to power as the voice of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't we welcome them to come and now take over the conversation as they guide us as a country as we look beyond 2030. Karibuni sana.
Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. Rais wa taifa letu tukufu Daktari William Samoei Ruto, Naibu Rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki, wageni wote ambao wamealikwa kwa nafasi ya uongozi ama viongozi mbalimbali, waheshimiwa wote ambao wapo nasi leo hii, viongozi wa kidini, Wakenya mbalimbali, walimu, wale ambao wanafanya biashara zao, biashara za wastani, biashara kubwa, biashara ndogo, madaktari, ama wote ambao wako katika sekta ya afya, wale ambao wako katika sekta yetu ya haki almaarufu kama judiciary, wale ambao wanatushikilia katika sekta ya benki kuhakikisha kwamba hela zetu ziko sawa na pia wanasimama nasi tunapohitaji mikopo, wale ambao wametoka kule vijijini ambako wanafanya shughuli zao ndogo ndogo kuhakikisha kwamba wanaendeleza shughuli zao na mahitaji yote ya siku. Kwa pamoja naomba niwaamkue. Hamjambo? Rais, shikamoo. Rais, kwani waitwa Sadiki? Mulisikia alivyoitoa hiyo marhaba? Mmemsikia kweli? Rais, shikamoo. Wapi makofi ya rais jamani? Kwa Kiswahili hiki rais atakuwa anaitwa Dr. William Samoei Ruto Shaban. Asante sana.
Umempa Shaban?
Nimempa Shaban.
Haya basi.
Ile marhaba ilitoka vizuri ile, uliona?
Haya basi.
Wakenya wenzangu,
twende nalo.
Subal kheri. Mwaguna, hamjui kulijibu hilo? Waziri Joho. Wakenya wenzangu, subal kheri. Aheri. Nikiwapeni subal kheri, mnanipeni aheri. Yani aheri kwa Kiluo ni nakupenda, lakini kwa Kiswahili ndo jibu la salamu subal kheri. Tujaribu tena Wakenya. Subal kheri.
Aheri.
Mashallah, nyote mlikuwa number 1 darasani. Sawa na nilivyotambulishwa majina yangu ya halali, kwa kitambulisho ni Melody Sinzore, mtangazaji wa lugha ya Kiswahili. Napenda sana na naenzi lugha ya Kiswahili. Natamani sana sote tuzungumze Kiswahili, manake rais, nina imani ningefunzwa kemia kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, grade yangu ingekuwa tofauti. Cha muhimu ambacho kimetuleta leo Wakenya wenzangu ni kuhakikisha kwamba tunakuja pamoja na kuitengeneza Kenya yetu ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Kenya ambayo tutakuwa tumezeeka lakini hatuna wasiwasi, manake tunajua tukiulizwa wakati mlipokuwepo duniani mulifanya yepi, tutakuwa kwamba tulitengeneza mazingira mazuri na watoto wetu, vijukuu, vitukuu, vilembwe na vilembokeza watapata maisha mazuri katika taifa hili. Leo hii tunaanzisha mazungumzo ya kitaifa. Ndo mwanzo tu. Uwe umealika nini? Hamjui? Ndo mwanzo. Uwe umealika? Uwe umealika ukoko. Walimu wote wa Kiswahili hapa ndani, walimu wa Kiswahili shikamoo. Walimu wa Kiswahili shikamoo. Ndo mwanzo wa umealika ukoko, kwamba ndo mwanzo tumeanza. Ni mazungumzo ambayo yataendelea na yataenda katika kaunti zetu zote 47 kuhakikisha kwamba kila Mkenya, yule ambaye yuko kule Poror Eldama Ravine, anatupa hisia zake, mtazamo wake na maoni yake. Yule Mkenya ambaye yuko kule Mwakitau Taita, anatupa hisia zake, anatupa mtazamo wake na anahakikisha anaijenga Kenya ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Yule ambaye yuko Oldonyo Sabuk, yule ambaye yuko kule Lodwar Kalokol, ndugu zangu kutoka Lodwar, Ejok Narobo, yule ambaye yuko Kajiado, yule ambaye yuko Naivasha, Nairobi, sote tuaja pamoja kuhakikisha kwamba tunazungumzia mahitaji ya taifa letu. Kuna mama ambaye amejifungua kule. Ukimuuliza historia yako ya kujifungua ilikuwa vipi, wakati maji ilivyo break na ukaenda kujifungua, ulipenda ile hali uloipitia? Hospitali ulokwenda ulipenda? Basi haya ndo mazungumzo ambayo tunataka tuyaike sawa. Na narudia tena, huu ndo mwanzo wa mazungumzo haya, mazungumzo ya kitaifa. Tupo online, lakini hapa KICC tulianzisha rasmi. Mkenya mwenzangu mwenye kupenda taifa hili, kujali kizazi cha kesho na kesho kutwa, kusema mimi nilisomea hapa lakini nina ndoto mjukuu wangu asomee mahali tofauti, kusema mimi nilizaliwa hapa lakini nina ndoto mtoto wa mtoto wangu awe na mazingira tofauti, kusema mimi nilipoumwa nilikwenda kwa hospitali hii, lakini nina ndoto mtoto wangu akiumwa aende kwa hospitali ya aina hii na aina hii. Naomba niwakaribishe nyote. Tutoe hisia zetu bila uoga, bila kuuliza maswali ambayo naogopa kwamba sitauliza hili. Tutoe hisia zetu bila kero, bila chuki. Cha mno tukumbuke kwamba ni taifa letu la Kenya ambalo kikatiba tunalisogeza mbele, ambalo kikatiba tunaliendeleza mbele. Mnakubaliana kwamba tutafanya hilo, Wakenya wenzangu? Tutaitengeneza Kenya ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Asanteni sana. Kwa mengi nilowachosha nayo, yupo kaka mwenye upara na ndevu.
Asante sana. Asante sana to Melody. And nafurahia kuona Joe amepiga makofi sababu ya kipara na ndevu. Unajua, unanielewa ndugu wangu Joe. Lakini pia nataka kuwashukuru wanahabari ambao wako hapa, watatusaidia kueneza mazungumzo haya, wako kule. Na pale pia wale ambao wako online nataka kuwashukuru kama wanahabari. Kama mwanahabari mwenyewe nasema asante sana. I'd like to acknowledge a guest of honor who I have had the honor of meeting. Young Adrian, just to stand up and we give him a round of applause. He is 7 years old. As you would imagine, Your Excellency, young Adrian Gwethe has a very busy itinerary, perhaps even as busy as yours, but he has cleared it just to be part of this national conversation. Let's appreciate him for gracing this launch of a national conversation of Kenya beyond 2030. Asante sana, you may have your seat, young lad, and he will be on stage to share one or two thoughts that he has about the future that he is looking forward to, that he will enjoy, he will realize, and that perhaps will outlive many of us here. But he's seated not too far from a generation that has seen it before. There's Professor Nyong'o and Professor Hino, who will also be here to give us a quick reflection of what they have experienced and what we can also realize as a nation. See, we're not just starting from thin air. We have something to look back at and look forward to based on what other republics have realized and are now living as a reality. So Professor Nyong'o and Professor Hino, we look forward to your remarks as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the people who will be on stage here will not be the experts per the definition that will be prescribing anything. This is just a conversation starter that we will come signifying that we will come to the people. We'll also be coming to you, seated all around us. And that's why we have this setup. We're having a conversation that is national, looking at the future of Kenya beyond 2030. And this will then, thanks to the media and the fourth estate, it will go to those who are watching us who are not able to join us here. And the conversation will definitely cascade to the corners of this nation. So to start us off, I'd like to call on a young law graduate who just graduated from law school, Migosi Maroa. Tafadhali, join us on stage to just give us a word from a youthful perspective of her hopes, as well as what she will be standing firm as a lawyer herself who's waiting to start practice. Jawan, yes, huyo ndo wakili namzungumzia to our security personnel. Ni huyo hapo ndo ataanza na sisi. Tafadhali mpishe aje tumpe makofi akija tafadhali to start us off on her hopes of what future she is looking forward to enjoying and holding all of us here accountable to realize for the nation. Karibu sana.
Asante. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, Prime Cabinet Secretaries, government officials present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Your Excellency, when the young people heard that I'll be setting the tone for today's conversation, they sent me nikuulize, bag ni ya nini? Hechi, unajua bag ni ya nini? Bag ni ya nini? Bas. Ati DP anasema the national conversation. Ati beyond 2030. Worry not, nitakwambia nikimaliza. My name is Mogesi Maroa. I am 23 years old. I was born and raised in a small village in Kuria in Migori County. It's at the border of Kenya and Tanzania. Now, growing up, I was always told by my parents that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Now, all right. Thank you. Now, this saying that my mom always told me has deeply resonated with me in this very moment because of what we are speaking about, beyond 2030, the future of Kenya. And it's not a coincidence that we are here today. Today is International Youth Day. As other nations in the world, today, International Youth Day, as other nations in the world are celebrating energy, creativity, infrastructure, Kenya has decided to do something more profound. We are beginning to map our destiny. 5 years ago, in 2008, I was barely 5 years when the President of the Republic of Kenya then, the late Mwai Kibaki, launched Vision 2030. It had 3 pillars. And I feel like the people who, the architects of Vision 2030 had me in mind, because all my life I have lived through Vision 2030. I went to school, to primary school, the free primary school. When I went to high school, I was in Kitui, and my home is in Migori, so I used the roads that were developed, the new roads. I went to university, Mount Kenya University, in an era of era. And I was reflecting as I was seated there about my little cousin. Her name is Nicole Roby. Every time I go home, she tells me that she looks up to me. She wants to become a lawyer like me. And that's really humbling, but it's also weighing upon me because it comes with a lot of responsibility. So today, as I stand on this dais, I represent Nicole. I represent all other 13-year-old Koreans in Kehancha. I represent a 13-year-old in Marsabit, in Nairobi, in KICC, in Kisumu, whose future will be shaped by the conversations that we start having right here. As a young lawyer, I cannot fail to honor the political pillar of Vision 2030. The reforms that were brought about by the Vision 2030, especially the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We talk about electoral reforms, the political reforms, the judicial reforms, and our nation has fundamentally redefined democracy. Now, ever since I was born, I have always heard about the conversation on democracy, rule of law, good governance, and we have been talking about democracy, and I can see, and we can all agree that we have achieved it. Now, it's time we talk about development. Because we have talked about democracy for far too long. Ever since I was born, I've just been hearing about democracy. We have achieved it. Development, we cannot downplay the fact that we have done some development. We have seen affordable housing. We have seen roads have been constructed, but we wish to see more. The generation before us poured blood and sweat so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we're enjoying today. And I think that it's our time to live up to that. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up watching tarmac road being built to my home. Now, when I talk about development, I'm actually saying development means freedom. What development looks like to me could look different to you. Development to me could look like roads. To you, it could look like building bridges. To someone else, it could look like growing. So as I grow up seeing the road grow, the road being tarmacked to my place in Kuria, it connected Kuria to Kehancha, to Migori, to Nairobi and beyond. And this was not just vehicles that moved faster. To the people of Kuria and the people of Kehancha, it was jobs that moved faster. It was teachers that moved. It was doctors that moved faster. And hope and connections that moved faster. This is a symbol of intentional infrastructure development, what it can do for our marginalized community. While we do not take for granted how far we have come, we celebrate this milestone, and as young people, we say this: we would love to see more. We would love to see more roads, we would love to see more development, and we would love to see more healthcare. Thank you.
Asante sana to Mogesi Maroa, a young lawyer in the making and is from Kuria. She has asked me to say that. Watu wa Kuria mpo? Mpo, naona mmoja ameinua mkono kule. She's proud. Yes, and she shakes her hand to ensure that they remember her face, because she's going to be here for the realization of the future beyond 2030. Now, for the next speakers who are going to be here in terms of giving us quick remarks, we're not just starting from nowhere. We had already been on a journey of Vision 2030, looking to go beyond Vision 2030 as a nation, and this is a conversation starter. We have many here who have been part of the journey of Vision 2030. Mugo Kibati here, his name in fact is almost synonymous when you say Vision 2030 over the years, especially after its inception and rollout, and he was at the helm of the team then. So let's hear from someone who has taken stock of what the status of implementation as we get to the winding years of Vision 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, on stage to address the nation in terms of share and take stock of how far we have come, and then welcome your views very shortly, Emmanuel Nzai, the chair of the Vision 2030 Delivery Board, to the stage. Let's give him a hand as he shares quick wins and gains over the years. Karibu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Your Excellency, the President, the Deputy President, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, all Cabinet Secretaries who are here, all the arms of government, judiciary, legislative, wananchi wote, hamjambo? Hamjambo tena? Mimi jina langu naitwa Emmanuel Nzai, mimi ndio chairman wa Kenya Vision 2030. Na mimi si mgeni na Vision 2030. Mugo Kibati ametajwa, lakini Mugo Kibati na mimi ndio tulianzisha secretariat ya Kenya Vision 2030. Miaka baadaye mimi ndio chairman wa Kenya Vision 2030. Kwa hivyo ni kwa so much humbleness that I get to stand here, Your Excellency. We have much to talk about the Kenya Vision 2030 in terms of achievements, and we cannot do it in 1 hour, 30 minutes, or even a day. But we'll try to do this in a very quick way to see what we have done so far. As we all know, we'll talk through this. Go ahead. Sir, thank you. So I want to talk quickly about the background. The background, we know, we had the 4 pillars: the economic pillar, the social pillar, and the political pillar. We created the national value system because we knew that was one also of the problems, especially to align with the new constitution. And then there's the foundations and enablers. Our aim was to transform Kenya into a globally competitive country, prosperous nation, and all what we have heard from this young girl here today. But a very quick perspective, what's the implementation approach of the Vision 2030? And I think this is very, very important to know why we're here today. The Vision 2030 was created 2008. The implementation process is through 5-year plans. The first MTP, 2008 to 2012, that was created mostly to shepherd the Kenya Constitution. After that, the Constitution was created. It was about the devolution. It's about the new architecture of the country, of the governance. And then from there, we went to medium-term plan 3, and now we're into medium-term 4. In that process, and this MTP development life cycle, it's very, very important for us to know in terms of the space where it works within the policy-making framework as we have had it. It always starts about 2 years before. It cannot wait until at the end. So the last MTP was started out in 2021, July, and today we are in August. We are just about a month, but we are ready to do this, and this is a process which will take us through the next, the next 2 years or so. But in between there, one of the most important things, and so unique about this process now, is not only have we to create the new MTP of 5 years, which will be one side into the 2030, because the MTP ends in 2028, it also has to also cross over to the next plan. And that's why we're calling it Beyond 2030, because we needed to bring it to the public, to the Kenyan people, in alignment to the Constitution, to have this conversation. Do we go on with this plan that we have had of moving into longer term planning? And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today. A very quick, so that you know, at the vision2030.go.ke, we have much of the reports which have created the foundation for the report that we are to talk about today, in terms of where is the Vision 2030 today? Where do we stand? And for more details, you can find it on our website, the Kenya Vision2030.go.ke. Ladies and gentlemen, you will be happy to know that across the Vision 2030 projects, flagship projects and programs, there has been 312 flagship projects from 2008 until today. 878 flagship projects. A good example of a flagship program is the LAPSET, as you know it. It has many, many components. Any project that has many, many components, then it takes a long time, and there's a whole life cycle in terms of implementation. The flagship projects are just like of the expressway, which has a beginning and has an end, and you can measure that equally. The aggregate of these projects, ladies and gentlemen, Wakenya wenzangu, we are at 66.1% of achievements implementation of the Kenya Vision 2030 projects from 2008 until today. Hiyo makofi haitoshi. Asanteni sana, and much of this need to be appreciated to the ministry, department, and agencies, and more to the Kenyan people who have worked hard to do this. Today, these projects are still ongoing today. Now, let's go to the pillars in terms of the achievements as we have. We've had the political pillar, the foundation enablers, the social pillar, and the economic pillar. The economic pillar has the lowest, and that's a conversation which there is evidence to it from where we are as a country today. The targets that we put were very, very aggressive, 10% GDP growth consistently, that we have not achieved. And there is a whole conversation that we can have about that. But let's go to the political pillar. The political pillar was mostly about the implementation of the Kenya Constitution. It was about the reforms which we needed to do, the institutional legal policies that needed to be put in place. We have been able to do that. We are at 88%, and this is 100% on the targets, the performance contracts which have been signed by the ministry, department, and agencies for us to be able to reach there. The foundations, enablers, that's the infrastructure projects that we see across the country which are happening. We are 61.6%, and someone decided to move to the other one. 61.6%, and then the social pillar, a very heavy one. That's where we have education, we have health, we have the human capital. We are at 59%. Just a quick glimpse, ladies and gentlemen, and I may not be able to do this much, but some of the projects which have been moving much of this line into the good percentage and achievements that we have. Very, very quickly, the SGR, Mombasa Naivasha, which is still also in process, the Nairobi Expressway, the Lamu ports, the 3 berths, and the associated projects. From the economic pillar, the deepened capital markets, that we have digital payment systems, the regional financial hub, and especially the special economic zones that we've had. In the social pillar, the healthy infrastructure, universal healthcare reforms, which have been happening, the social protection funds, and growth of TVETs. Political pillar, we have discussed that. There is details for each flagship project program that we can actually offer the evidence of how this got to happen and where it is at this point. I want to quickly go through this so that you get to see some of the key components: political pillar, devolution, 89%, national values, governance, rule and law at 81% to get that aggregate. The enablers, pillars, we can see how we got that, and in each of that we have the breakdown of the project underneath. The social pillar, again, you have the health right at the top with much of the reforms that we have had in the health sector. The economic pillar, do not want to go much into detail on that at this point, but the outcomes, and very, very key here, there has been outcomes in each flagship project that we do, and we've been tracking that. The real GDP growth, the target, like we said, it was 10%. We have fallen short of that. It's been ranking between 4.5, 4.6%, but nevertheless, as we know, and also our cabinet secretary has been talking much about this, we've been very resilient, and much of the reforms are kind of showing some of the good progress. One of my favorite indicators is the Human Development Index. The Kenya Vision 2030 has been about transformation, and the transformation is about which human being are you transforming and to what measure. What kind of prosperity is it? So the Human Development Index, we don't do it ourselves. The United Nations does it, and that's how we rank it. We are at 6 out of 1. We are doing good. Ladies and gentlemen, I will just jump over to a last one here to say this. The Vision 2030 has changed the country. It is evidence, it is not talk. Today, as we speak, we've been talking to the Kenyan people in the last 1 month or so, and to talk and to simply listen. And one good example that came up was very, very simple. Dangote today will not say he wants to go to Lamu and put in that sort of investment if it was not the Kenya Vision 20 LAPSET project which was done, for us to be believed outside of here, for it to guide policy, for it to have believability. And so through that, it's an example that we have across all other projects. Kenya is not just Kenya for us. Kenya is a place for the world because of our global location. And because of that, they need to see evidence of a plan, and I think this is what we have. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just to finish, on our end and our call to you has been to simply have the discussion or begin a discussion of beyond 2030. The Constitution calls that we do that. Our calendar tells us that we do that. And the time is now between the month of July and August. So we're very, very happy that we get to start this process together. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much. To Bwana Emmanuel Nzai, the chair of the Kenya Vision 2030 Delivery Board. Now it was just a snapshot, and it's information that we have available publicly and will be able to digest as we continue, because it then informs the next steps that we will be taking. And the next steps, speaking of which, I'd like now to call on one of the vision bearers in this respect. And for this, I'd like to say karibu sana to His Excellency Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, who's a governor of Kisumu County, but in this context, chairs the Vision Development Technical Committee, who will now give us a quick look at where we're looking to head as a nation and starting this conversation. Let's give a hand to Professor Nyong'o as he comes, and then he'll be followed by the young 7-year-old Adrian Gweth in a bit. Karibu sana. Makofi kwake akija kwa the rostrum as he approaches, just to give us his quick look at the future we aspire to.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss a very important subject. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Excellencies, Governors, distinguished Cabinet Secretaries, Members of Parliament, representatives of the private sector, academia, faith-based organization, and civil society, distinguished guests, our dear friend, Dr. Hino, Professor Hino, who has been with us for a week now and who knows Kenya very well and has been working with us very closely on visioning the development of Kenya. Thank you very much, Prof, for coming. We gather here today for an extremely important occasion in national duty. We are here to begin a national conversation on Kenya's development goals for the next few decades. Collectively, here and in all parts of this country, in the days to come, we want to build for the future. To build for the future, we must have a clear view of the future that we desire and commit ourselves to building it, block by block, until we achieve it. Many of us here today in this audience are perhaps asking themselves why this conversation is necessary at this time. Why now? There are three compelling reasons why this conversation should take place at this important time. First, our country has been guided by Vision 2030 as its long-term development plan since 2008. Implemented through successive 5-year medium-term plans covering the period 2023 to 2027, remains anchored on Vision 2030. But what happens after 2027? This is where medium-term plans becomes important. If Kenya simply develops another 5-year plan without first agreeing on the country's long-term destination beyond 2030, our planning process risks becoming another cycle of programs and projects without a sufficiently clear national direction. Vision 2030 was intended to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens in a clean and secure environment. With 2030 now just around the corner, it is necessary to take stock of how far we have so far come. Some of the challenges that Vision 2030 was designed to address have been substantially addressed, while others remain unresolved or become more complex. At the same time, Kenya now faces new challenges that were largely non-existent when the vision was conceived. In a global and regional environment that has changed fundamentally since the vision was unveiled more than 2 decades ago. It is therefore necessary to begin planning for the period beyond 2030 and allow sufficient time to formulate our new long-term development goals through an inclusive, consultative, and participatory process in keeping with the constitutional requirement for meaningful public participation. Secondly, the context in which Kenya operates, both domestically and within the regional and global arena, has changed significantly since the implementation of Vision 2030 began in 2022. Kenya now has a younger and increasingly urbanized population, creating growing demand for infrastructure, energy, housing, and social amenities. Regionally and across the continent, Kenya also faces increased competition, including from neighboring East African community countries, as nations pursue greater economic, infrastructural, and technological competition. The global competitive environment is therefore far more intense than it was in Vision 2030, when Vision 2030 was launched. Kenya cannot afford complacency. Sustained investment, innovation, competitiveness, and strategic foresight are essential to ensure that the country does not fall behind. Globally, we are faced with new realities in economic and political fragmentation of the multilateral system established after the Second World War. Geopolitical tensions have brought crisis to our land in ways we have never envisaged. It is high time we began a conversation on how we escape the disruptions such as developments in the decades abroad. Thirdly, we have learned valuable lessons from the implementation of Vision 2030 that we need to apply in thinking about and implementing new long-term development vision for this country. Vision 2030 has guided us to some measure of industrialization, political stability, modern infrastructure. There is more to be done to enable us to transition to a high-income, high-value, resilient economy whose wealth is broadly shared among the citizens. There have been fair assessment of successes and challenges of implementation of Vision 2030 done by various state and non-state actors. Some of these assessments have gone further to attribute the limited achievement of Vision 2030 to certain explanatory factors, including but not limited to inadequate financial resources and a weak capacities for coordination and supervision of implementation. We will hear more of these perspectives in the course of this day and in future conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, let me at this point spell out a key feature of this conversation. First, it must remain a national and an inclusive conversation about Kenya. Despite the fact that general elections are due in just about a year, this conversation is not about the next general elections. Indeed, one of the lessons that Kenya must learn from the countries that achieved socioeconomic transformation in recent history, in Asia, for example, is that long-term development goals must not be disrupted by electoral cycles and the political leadership that such elections bring up from time to time. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that we do not have a plan yet at this time, except for some guidelines on how to produce it. This meeting is therefore the first step in a journey that must not be rushed. Let us give ourselves reasonable time to have an inclusive conversation among Kenyans regarding the future of our nation. Let us join this national conversation with open minds and a shared sense of purpose to imagine and craft our collective future as one Kenyan people and build consensus on how best to achieve our national goals for shared prosperity. Thank you very much.
Mashallah, msijifanye kama hamkunywa chajio ama hamkunywa kimshakinwa. Hakukuwa na breakfast upande wa pili? Kwa mayo, hakukuwa na breakfast upande wa pili? Asante sana Prof. Asante sana Profesa Nyang'nyong'o pamoja na wenzake, ndo wale ambao walitufikisha hapa tulipo Vision 2030. Lakini ni jukumu lako, wewe mkulima, wewe mwalimu, wewe mama mboga, wewe mfanyibiashara ya wastani na ile kubwa, ni jukumu lako wewe wakili, na ni jukumu langu Melody Sinzore kuhakikisha kwamba tunaboresha Kenya ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Na ndio maana tunaliendeleza hili, na nimesema ndio mwanzo tumelianzisha na litaendelea sana. Kuna mtoto mdogo ambaye tunajua wana akili nyingi sana, anaitwa mtoto Adrian Gweth. Najua wengi wenu katika umri huu wa miaka 7 mngeambiwa msimame mbele ya pastor, wacha rais, mngeambiwa msimame mbele ya mtumishi wa Mungu, wangapi wangesimama? Mwajifanya kwa sababu rais yupo. Hamngeweza. Lakini kuna mtoto hapa ambaye anakuja kutuelezea pia yake mawili matatu. Kenya tunayoitengeneza ni Kenya ya mtoto kama huyu na wenzake ambao wanaishi katika ulimwengu wa mitandao, ambao wakiingia online wanasema mbona lile taifa wanafanya vile, mbona sisi hatuna hilo. Akiingia mtandaoni anasema mbona wale wanafanya hivi biashara na sio sisi. Lakini hapa tulipo, tunapolianzisha hili, tuna uwezo wa kumpa mtoto Adrian pamoja na wenzake Kenya hiyo. Tutaweza, hatutaweza? Na kwa pamoja, this is a symbolic way ya kumpeleka mtoto kwa Kenya ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Watu wazima jamani, tumshabikie mtoto. Mashallah. Asante sana. Anaitwa Adrian Gweth. Take it away, baba.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Adrian Gweth Ombuni. I am 7 years old. In 2060, I will be 41 years old. My dream for Kenya, I would like to see good school for all children, good hospital for everyone, clean water for every home, clean roads everywhere, more jobs for young people, happy and safe families, clean towns and cities, more trees and green spaces, our animal protected, peace in Kenya. Mr. President, I want to grow up in a happy and safe Kenya. I want Kenya to be a country where every child can dream and achieve their dreams. Thank you, Mr. President. God bless you.
Wow, wow, wow. Jamani wazazi, simnigawe huyu. Asante, asante. Thank you so much. Mark?
Yes. That is a leader. That is a leader. Thank you to Adrian Gweth. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would like to call on someone also who's taken up the throes of leadership in his own aspect and respect. The young lad is called Ahmed Rashid. He is a president at the University of Nairobi and, of course, taking up leadership and speaking to the future that he aspires to achieve together as a nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Rashid Ahmed.
Thank you, thank you. The President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Speaker of the National Assembly, if he is present, Speaker of the Senate, Cabinet Secretaries, senior government officials from all the three arms of government, student leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning once again. I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this event for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the young people of Kenya. This is a golden opportunity, and I know the drafters of this vision will agree with me that the vision of Kenya beyond 2030 is already at the implementation stage. Already there is the implementation of youth inclusion in leadership and governance. I'm facing this side because I'm told this is a conversation. Therefore, I should not make a speech. Your Excellency, I want to take this opportunity to say that many young people, including myself, were not part and parcel when the Vision 2030 was being launched. But I am as well a beneficiary of the Vision 2030, the free primary education, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, I represent a generation, the young people of Kenya, who not only question, but are as well ready to provide solutions and suggestions. Comrades, power! We will not only question, but we will as well provide solutions and suggestions. Your Excellency, in Kenya and Africa at large, the majority population consists of young people. Therefore, we should see this as an advantage. I want to make a commitment on behalf of the young people that we will be at the forefront. We will be the drivers of the vision of Kenya beyond 2030. This is not about government. This is not about young people or the old people. It's about Kenya. Leaders come and go, but Kenya will remain. Comrades, power! We are already on the right direction. Your Excellency, 2 months ago, I was in South Africa, and I was really shocked to see that many people in South Africa were working with physical cards and cash. I was like, kwani nyinyi hamna M-Pesa? Kitu naitwa M-Pesa. Something similar to M-Pesa. I was really shocked. The digitalization of our mobile banking is something that we are really proud. So we are already there. We are already there. All we need is just to make it a dream and a realization. Singapore, tutafika. Sisi, wote. Your Excellency, and I will read this in verbatim. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, this is a great conversation where the element is reflected in your appointment of our youngest Principal Secretary for Youth Affairs, PS Fikrini Jacobs, a clear demonstration of your confidence in young leadership. After more than 12 years, we are finally seeing the renewed hope with the long-awaited National Youth Council elections coming in October. Therefore, Your Excellency, I'm ready to drive this vision, me as an individual, and the young people at large, so that we be part and parcel of this. And we are ready, and I am ready, me myself, I'm ready to lead the young people of this great republic. Your Excellency, niko na salamu kutoka University of Nairobi. I know you're alumni 001. So leo walisema lazima nikusalimie, nisitoke bila kukusalimia. Pia niko na salamu kutoka the students from all the universities in Kenya. The students, leaders specifically, some have traveled all the way from Turkana, Lodwar, Homa Bay, Garissa, Mandera, and they are here to witness the launch of this vision. I heard someone saying that when someone is meeting the president for the first time, they usually cry. So I have just carried my handkerchief just in case. Your Excellency, the future of Kenya is young, a digital Kenya, and a Kenya whose growth must reach every town and every village. I come from a constituency called Ijara in Garissa County, and I want to imagine a future where someone do not necessarily travel to Nairobi, maybe, let's say, to access a certain service. So urbanization, as one of the pillar in this vision, must also be considered. Your Excellency, I want to thank you sincerely for including youth in your leadership. Thank you so much once again for this vision, the vision that you have imagined way even beyond your lifetime. 30 years from now, I will be your age, but you'll be at a very old age. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much, everyone, and God bless Kenya. Comrades, power!
Asante sana. Let's give a hand to the young leader. And I'm sure he wants to steal a picture with the president. This is the only opportunity you have, sir. Well, not. The conversation continues, so I'm sure the president will be sitting with many across the country, coming to you where you are, and will be able to interact in person and get your feedback directly from you, from whichever stakeholder body that you represent. Academia is also represented here. Speaking of which, I'd like to call on Professor Hiroyuki Hino, who has held great positions in terms of the outlook of the economy, whether it's in Asia or in Africa. And he has a lot to lend in terms of reflections of what we can not just aspire, but actually realize and live. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Professor Hiroyuki Hino.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, distinguished guests, I'm most grateful for this opportunity to speak with you at this conference, which launches a nationwide consultation to forge consensus on a vision beyond 2030. Your Excellency, I'm deeply gratified that you continue to honor a conversation you had with the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga only a few weeks before his untimely departure. Immediately after that after that conversation, the former Prime Minister called me. He was full of hope. He said, the Prime Minister said, President Ruto and the former Prime Minister had agreed that it was imperative to take a fresh look at where Kenya stood. How difficult it was for ordinary Kenyans to earn a decent living, how government could help them better. Your Excellency, you and the Prime Minister agreed that Kenya needed a bold vision that would inspire and unite all Kenyans, irrespective of their political or ethnic affiliation. The vision should be prepared by experts who are independent of government and trusted by the public, and with full participation of all stakeholders. For this purpose, Your Excellency, you decided to reconstitute the National Economic and Social Council as an independent body. It was indeed a special privilege to be included in that conversation, Mr. President. Thank you. For Raila's legacy, and as a Kenyan at heart, I'll be honored to assist Kenya in this endeavor. Your Excellency, I'm told that many Kenyans are skeptical. They believe that Singapore is too high a target for Kenya to reach in this generation. I agree that reaching Singapore's level of development in the next 30 to 40 years will be difficult. Singapore's income per Singapore's level of income per person last year exceeded $80,000. This in Kenya, the income was just over $2,000. Huge difference. But I would say this to the skeptics. Kenyans possess personal attributes that can power extraordinary growth. The Asian miracle was driven in important part by the strength of its people. Hard work, motivation, discipline, and cooperation. During my 5 years as economic advisor to the Prime Minister, and later a senior advisor to the then Deputy President William Ruto, I often visited the Amref Dagaroti Child in Need project. There, children who once worked on streets received compassionate educational, medical, and psychological support, along with vocational training and opportunities in theater, music, and the arts. I was deeply impressed. Those young people were entrepreneurial, energetic, and highly motivated. And after all, they were happy despite the hardship they endured. Scientific evidence support. Can you see? Next page. Scientific evidence supports my favorable impression of Kenyan children. Since 2008, my colleagues, Professors Jennifer Lansford of Duke University and Professor Paul Oburu of Maseno University, having studying 100 children and their parents in Kisumu, using well-established methods of developmental psychology. Their findings show that Kenyan children are more optimistic and persevering than their peers in several developing and developed countries. Kenyan children demonstrate greater hope and confidence in the future, as well as greater determination to pursue their goals. Kenyan children also do well in 3 other dimensions of flourishing. Number 1, engagement. That is being involved deeply in activities. Number 2, connectedness. That is the feeling loved, supported, and valued. And happiness. That is a great general sense of cheerfulness and contentment with life. But not all is well, of course. Kenyan children perform less well than their peers in self-management, what psychologists call self-regulation. This means they have greater difficulty staying focused on long-term goals, managing emotions under stress, exercising self-discipline, and adapting to change. Strengthening these abilities can raise productivity, growth, and employment. I believe this study that is conducted by my colleagues will shed light on how learning and socialization shape personal attributes, entrepreneurial mindset, and attitude toward informality, and how these in turn influence employment and other livelihood choices. Although this is a small pilot study, we hope that its finding will help us recommend policies to Kenya to strengthen the learning and socialization of Kenyan children and thus improve their prospect as young adults. Your Excellency, economic growth and large investment projects are important. However, ultimately, a government is judged by how well it improves the economic and social well-being of every citizen. Kenya has made a significant stride. In the last 20 years, average household income per person increased from $2.24 to $3.50 per day. That is an important improvement. Access to electricity, clean cooking fuels, safe drinking water, and improved sanitation rose by 37 percentage points to 60% on average. Again, important progress. The share of children not stunted improved from 70 to 80%. These are important progress. Yet, frankly, for a country of Kenya's stature, this record is disappointing. In household income, childhood nutrition, basic services and learning, Kenya trails Vietnam, which used to trail Kenya by far, and at par is broadly comparable to Ghana, and Kenya can do better. Suppose Kenya aims to reach Singapore's current levels in these 4 indicators of economic well-being, and by its centenary, 2063. Is this as implausible as many Kenyans assume? Is it that difficult? They should give up. In my view, Kenya can reach or surpass 3 of the 4 goals. First, the remaining cases of stunting are concentrated in the south area. With concerted action, stunting could be virtually eliminated within 10 years. That I'm confident of. I recognize it may be more appropriate to use the broader measure of public health as indicators of Kenyan well-being, but for this purpose, that I chose the stunting to highlight the plight of these underprivileged in those areas. That's why this indicator was chosen. Second, Kenya's harmonized test score, HTS, a globally accepted measure of learning, was 26% below Kenya's level last year. Sorry, Singapore's level last year. To close this gap by 2063, annual improvement of only 0.63% is needed. This is achievable if Kenya continues to improve the quality of primary and secondary education. Is doable. The third, in Singapore, access to basic services is universal. But only about 60% in Kenya. There's still a big gap. Reaching 100% by 2063 would require annual growth of 1.3%. This is also achievable. It's achievable because access to clean cooking fuel is the weakest area of those services, but new technologies could expand this access very rapidly. So it's certainly doable. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth target, that is to raise the average household income to Singapore's level, is much, much harder. This would require income per person to grow by more than 10% per year for 35 years. That is a very tall order. So what should Kenya do? So Kenya must accelerate economic growth first. It should tighten fiscal policy, increase investment in infrastructure, on essential services, and bring public debt under control. It must also continue to support private enterprises. Reliance on private sector has been the hallmark of Singapore's development. These are the basics that has to continue. But even if this is done, without additional impetus, growth is likely to hit a plateau in Kenya. Over the last several decades, most middle-income countries have failed to cross the high-income level threshold. And this is the phenomenon known as the middle-income trap. It's hard to cross the high-income threshold. And Kenya will face an additional challenge. International trade has become less predictable. Support for many UN agencies has weakened, and development assistance, ODA, has fallen sharply. So it is more difficult. Against these headwinds, Kenya would do well to achieve and sustain annual per person income growth of 5%. Kenya would do well, 5% growth. If we assume population to grow by 1% per year, this translates to growth of GDP, economic measures as a whole, of about 6.5% a year. If achieved, this would be a remarkable, if it's achieved, yes, a remarkable achievement indeed, if it could be done. But reaching Singapore's current income level requires another 5 percentage point income growth every year. That's hard. In other words, Kenya needs a quantum jump, quantum leap to a substantially higher growth trajectory. This requires bold and transformative change. Kenyan flour Yeah, thank you. The Kenyan flower industry is an example. It illustrates the transformative change we are looking for. By adapting new floriculture technologies and faster global transport network, the flower industry became most competitive globally and achieved a huge growth in its revenue. So there is an example of a Kenya needs similar transformative changes throughout its economy and society. What could bring the transformative changes we desire? Answers to this question should emerge from the national dialogue and the work of committee of experts that I hope the President will constitute. At this stage, I would offer a few observations. First, AI, artificial intelligence, will no doubt transform economies and societies, many aspects of it. But now, at this stage, we do not yet know exactly how they will transform. So this is an area that we should draw on leading global experts as Kenya develops a new vision. Second, Kenyans could become among the world's most entrepreneurial, hardworking, and competitive people if their children's productive attributes are fully nurtured. In my view, this requires a review of the formal education system in Kenya now. The scope of education and learning should be expanded beyond cognitive skills to include broader self-management and other capabilities in Kenya education that have been done. Third, inequality in Kenya is high. Kenya is an unequal economy. The poorest 20% of Kenyans receive only 5% of national income, whereas the richest 20% receive one half. Richest 5%, 20% of income, poorest 5%, only 5%. Narrowing this imbalance would raise income of ordinary household and bring Kenya closer to the income growth trajectory to Singapore we are looking for. Three possible remedies deserve considerations these inequalities. One is to increase government support to people in need of help. In Singapore, the government transfers about $7,300 per person per year. In Kenya, guess how much? $220. Kenya can increase this amount. The other possible remedy is to embrace small informal enterprises rather than dismissing them. Professor Charles Piot, my colleague, and I conducted a study of informal enterprises in Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. The study shows informal enterprises can grow fast, especially when owners' informal characters are combined with informal ways of doing business. They can grow fast. They do not necessarily need subsidized government loans. Privately financed microfinance can work well. inequality should be a central element of the national consultation. Finally, corruption damages the economy and weakens the social fabric. Curbing corruption will be a truly transformative for Kenya. Kenyans often say that government tolerates corruption, and public officials are rarely prosecuted. I agree, where there is sufficient evidence, those responsible must be brought before the courts. But citizens also have an important role to play. When citizens witness or learn of corruption, they can expose them through social media. As we saw 2 years ago, social media movements can be a powerful force for accountability. So Kenyan citizens should take active role in curbing corruption as well. I welcome the conflict of interest law and electronic procurement system that was introduced as part of broader governance reforms supported by the World Bank. Priority now is to enforce those measures fully and consistently, and citizens should help by staying vigilant and demanding accountability. To conclude, the national consultation launched today will be a major asset to setting the stage for transforming Kenya to a first world economy. In this speech, I've highlighted 4 themes for the national consultation: childhood learning, support for the poor, micro-business development, and the fight against corruption. I'm confident that other important ideas will emerge through this national process. Ladies and gentlemen, Raila dreamed of a new Kenya where ordinary citizens enjoy a decent life and look to the future with full of hope. His dream, Raila's dream, was to empower young Kenyans to live their dreams. Your Excellency, you shared the Raila's dream and had a deal with them. And that deal is a new vision. Your Excellency, you have triggered the curiosity of Kenyans. Stay the course to the end, please. And to the people of Kenya, remember this: Singapore is reachable. Thank you.
Thank you to Professor Hiroiki Hino. I believe you'll probably shake hands with the president there. He's worked and advised the president as a deputy then, and now he's here to lend just some brief. We can look to what we can do as a nation. Beg your pardon for that. And the conversation continues and will be coming to you as I believe we have people following us online and on radio and on television, and this is a conversation as much for you as it is starting for us here, convened in this meeting.
Kwa wasioelewa sana alichokitamka ndugu yangu, anasema kwamba ni mazungumzo ya kitaifa ambayo tayari yameanza na yataendelea. Hapa tupo katika ukumbi huu wa KICC, lakini mazungumzo haya yanaendelea kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Nimechungulia nikaona live handle ya X ya Mr. President is live. Haucheki nao? Wapi makofi kwa X handle ya Mr. President jamani? Wako macho, wako na sisi sana, na nikajuzwa pia handles zote za afisi zote za Ikulu pia ziko live, na ndo ulimwengu ambao tunawishi, ulimwengu wa kileo. Nataka tujishebedue kidogo, tunyoshe misuli kidogo, manake tunajua kwamba upande wa nyuma umri umesonga, miguu kidogo inaanza kufaganzi, si ndio? Kuna mtu hapa nikimwambia nyanya mkuu Kabogo, sinaangalia hivyo, kimguu akijaanza kufa ganzi. Mheshimiwa Kabogo, hebu fanya hivi kidogo. Niliwaambia ona ameshindwa. Najua miguu imekufa ganzi kidogo, kwa hiyo nataka tusimame tuweze kujishebedua, lakini kidogo niwakumbushe hili. Kitu ambacho kinanifurahisha sana kuwepo kwenye jukwaa hii leo hii, nilipokuwa mtoto mdogo, mamangu ndo huwa anaelezea hiki kisa, kwamba nikiwa na umri kama miaka 6 vile, nilimwambia mamangu ninataka kuwa mtangazaji siku moja. Na nikamwambia mama, natamani nisiwe mkubwa kama wewe kwa kuwa sitatoshea ndani ya redio. I'm happy mmenielewa. What does that mean? Kwamba kipindi hicho ningeulizwa, Melody Sinzore, unataka kuwa mtangazaji, tukusaidieje siku za baadaye uwe mtangazaji? Ningesema nataka mtengeneze redio kubwa ambayo nitatoshea ndani. Si mmenielewa? Ndio kitu tunachokifanya leo. Tunatengeneza kesho na kesho kutwa ya watoto wetu na wajukuu wetu wenye ndoto tofauti tofauti. Tuwatengenezee mazingira mapya na mema katika taifa hili. 2030 imetufikisha hapa, lakini tuna hatua za mbele za kuendeleza. Kati yetu najua yupo mwanamuziki ambaye anatutumbuiza, lakini kwa wasiojua, najua pia media houses tayari zinapeperusha matangazo haya moja kwa moja. Na wanauliza huyu Melody Sinzore ni mtangazaji kutoka wapi? Ni mtangazaji wa Radio Citizen FM. Chemichemi ya ukweli, stesheni nambari... mmesema wenyewe. Stesheni nambari... Asanteni sana. Mabibi na mabwana, wachumba wanaopendana na wanaovumiliana, wanaotafuta wachumba, wanandoa na wanandoa watarajiwa, kwa pamoja naomba tumkaribishe the one and only Guardian Angel kwenye wimbo wake Kenya.
Asante. DJ. Mheshimiwa Rais, Daktari William Ruto, Deputy President Professor Abraham Kithure. Mimi naitwa Guardian Angel ama Waingo. Ni msanii. Katika uchezaji wa mpira usually sisi wale tunakaa nje ndio tunasemanga angepiga hivi ama angefunga namna hii ama huyu mtu anatuuza. Lakini ukiwekwa ndani ya kiwanja ndio utajua kumbe ile kiwanja ni kubwa. Si ni kweli? Kwa hiyo leo Mheshimiwa Rais, nakushukuru sana kwa sababu ya kuturuhusu tuwe na mazungumzo na wewe pia, na kuturuhusu kwamba sisi kama wananchi tuje pamoja kwa ajili ya kuzungumzia ujenzi. Kwa sababu nchi yetu ya Kenya ni kubwa sana, haiwezi kujengwa na mtu mmoja. Kwa hiyo asante sana kwa kuturuhusu tuwe na mazungumzo. Hata Biblia inasema Mungu ilifika wakati akasema njooni tusemezane. Kwa hiyo tunakushukuru sana kwa kuturuhusu kusemezana ili tuweze kujenga taifa. Sasa nataka tu sisi wote, kila mtu ainue mkono ya mwenzake, mwambie tushikane mikono tujenge Kenya.
nation. We are crafting a fresh cultural narrative. 5484, 5484, 5484, media. Media. This is Africa, 54 countries.
An inclusive conversation. We just want to start it off. It's not conclusive, it's inclusive. And it's not thorough in the sense we are not ending it here, we're just starting. And for that, I'd like to call on Julie Gishuru, ladies and gentlemen, who will be steering that conversation. As she stands by, we'll put some things into context in terms of the journey that has been on the screens that are around this room, and I'm sure those following us from home will be able to follow this. It is just a true testimonial from wananchi ambao wengi wao hawako hapa, but they have had the impact of the journey that we've had so far. And right after that, Julie Gishuru will be taking stage to steer the conversation that starts today. Asante sana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? Siski? How are we doing? Tuko hapa kujenga Kenya. Kujenga nchi yetu. I want us to reflect for a moment, and we're going to have a video on just now. But just before the video plays, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. What is Kenya? Think about it. To you, what is Kenya? The other question I want you to ask yourself, how many nations enable their people to come together in a collective conversation on who we are and who we seek to become? How many nations? Our neighbors in Africa, around the world? How many nations give voice to the citizen in the way we are about to? And so please reflect on that. A video will play and I'll come right back on the stage. Thank you.
Please, studio, let's have the video. Naonekana studio yetu hawajafikisha Vision 2060. Twende kazi.
A small island with no oil and no land asked exactly the same thing. They moved a nation of villagers into high-rise flats. People carried their chickens up the stairs because nobody gives up a life on the word of a government. 60 years later, Singapore is the richest country in Asia. It still has no oil. It refines everybody else's. Ghana past us. Vision 2030 promised a middle-income country by the end of this decade. 4 years out, the government's own verdict is one word. So a plan for 2060 must survive a harder question than economics. Why trust the future to people you do not yet trust with the present?
Hiyo maneno ya Vision 2060 is a con.
The critics are not a footnote in this film. They are half of it.
National development must never be left to chance or short-term politics.
A charter written by Kenyans, built to outlive whoever is in the State House, but paper is only paper. What does it look like on a Tuesday morning? 5 million people, 12 million journeys a day, a road network designed for a town. 30 kilometers underground, 25 stations, Eastlands to town in the time it takes to finish a phone call. Nairobi first drew this line in 1948, and again in 1972, and again in 2014. This time it is cabinet approved, county approved, and priced. 1 trillion shillings. We are growing the wrong way. Outward, plot by plot, eating the farmland that feeds us, then running a road, a sewer, and a power line to every plot. 1 sewer serving 50,000 people instead of 500. Housing and food security are not competing for the same land. They are competing for the same decision. Living is the simplest test there is. A tap that works, a roof that is yours, a clinic in walking distance that has the medicine, a school where the teacher has been paid. The levy has taken 212 billion shillings off Kenyan payslips. By the government's own count, 8,367 homes are finished. That gap is not an accounting error. It is the whole argument. Africa's most famous slum, taken down block by block and rebuilt on the same ground for the same people. 10,000 people in Zone C and D were given 13 days and 60,000 shillings to move. The building is the easy part. The question not a dream, a decision with a budget line and a name on it. They laughed at Singapore too, then they visited. It turns out you can build a country and still keep the chicken. You just have to decide to.
What Kenya do we choose? And we get to talk about it. We get to talk about it. If you remember the 80s, how many remember the 80s? Let's see hands. Single party rule, right? We pushed for multi-party democracy. We went into the 90s. We achieved multi-party democracy. We started the push for a new constitution. And we pushed and pushed together as a country. And then we hit the early 2000s and we formed the Bomas process. And the CKRC, the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission. I say this because so many young people don't know where Kenya has come from. The Constitution of Kenya Review Commission spent years at Bomas of Kenya in Lang'ata, taking the views of Kenyans from all over the country, through their representatives, through civil society, spoke and spoke and spoke, and argued and argued and argued, and debated and dialogued. And we got our first draft, which did not pass the scrutiny of Kenyans. Do we remember? It did not pass the scrutiny of Kenyans because it was taken back to Kenya. And then we went back to the drawing board. And then we had a new constitution. 2010, was it? But Vision 2030 had already been birthed. And now we get to birth a vision under our new constitution. And many a time we are frustrated in Kenya. But how often do we stop to say, thank you, Lord, for a country where we can push for what we want? And for that, before I invite our panel, I want to ask us to celebrate our country and ourselves in ululation. I am so proud of being Kenyan because of processes like this. Ladies and gentlemen, leo we are all wananchi. Your Excellency, today we are all citizens. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Allow me now to invite our panel to come up and take their seats, and we will start a dialogue. Dr. James Mwangi, please come up. Let's give him a round of applause as he makes his way up. Daisy Amdani, who's the Executive Director of CRON, focused on community advocacy and awareness. Give her a round of applause. Dr. Mwangi, I didn't give your role because everyone in Kenya knows who you are and what you do. Please take your seat. Please sit where you are most comfortable. Next, let me ask Betty Maina, former CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, to come up and take her seat. Faith Beatrice, President of Daystar University Students Association. Faith, where are you? Please come up, give her a round of applause. Mwita Ian Matiko, student leader, Kenya Methodist University. Let's give him a round of applause as well. Festus Mwanza Kaluki, youth leader from Machakos, representing people living with disabilities. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes up as well. And also with us, Ambassador Bitange Ndemo. Please do come up and take your seat. He's Kenya's ambassador, I believe, to the Kingdom of Belgium and the European Commission. Please do take a seat. Thank you all so much for joining this conversation. I will start with a simple question. How far have we come as a nation, in your view? And what have our greatest achievements been? And then from there, for you, where are we going? Where should we be going? And how do we get there? Can I start with a youth voice? Faith, kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. So one great achievement that we've seen is the development in terms of roads. We've seen Thika Highway and Vision 2030. That's one of the developments for Vision 2030. Which is a movement along Thika Superhighway, leading to economic growth and empowerment here. That's pivotal, yeah.
Sorry, Kenyans are adaptable. When things don't work, we figure it out, right? So that's another wonderful thing about us. James, take us to your journey. Of course, you are part of Vision 2030. You have also been part of building Kenya, private sector, but also wings to fly, and development-wise, you've done a lot. How much have we achieved? And where are we going?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jury. Looking back, we have made very significant progress, but progress is always relative. You only appreciate how far we have gone if you look at our age of 60 years relative to other economies and their age. That's how you really appreciate. But at the Vision 2030, the data was out there. We are ranging between 50 and 80 in terms of achievement of targets. So when you get 50, you have passed. If you get 80, you have done very well. So it's really a question of relying on data. Could we have done better? I think Professor feedback, because he held the mirror for us, there are areas we could have done better. And that is why it is important to formulate Vision 2063 so that we can do better in the areas that we did well, but also continue to do well in the areas we did well. But I would like to single education and health. To me, while the indicators have not really been what they should be, getting 1.2 million children to sit for an exam in 1 year and graduate to the next, that to me is a huge achievement because we have moved from a very low number.
Where are we going?
I think where we are going is, and I was sitting next to a dream, is fulfilling his dreams. This vision is not about our generation. This vision is about our children and our grandchildren. And he reflected where we are going. And it's, as he spoke, I was amazed that he's helping us to see where we didn't get it right, that we could have been more people-centered. It's really him, it was all about people, education, security, health, neighborliness, environment. That is all about people. Yes, we did lay foundation in infrastructure, but Adrian representing the people for who we are here wants a people-centered vision.
Very powerful, very powerful. Let me come next to you, Daisy. Tell us what you are most impressed with in terms of what we've achieved, and tell us where are we going. Let's try. Let's see if the mic is working.
Okay, thank you.
Try again. Just hold it.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. I think, and I'm going to speak as a woman, that in Kenya, I think we've made significant strides. I think the most important thing that we did for ourselves as a country was the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution that gave us the framework for inclusion. And when I think of, you talked about the 80s, and there are many things that people don't know about where women came from. I remember when we were in school in the 80s, a woman could not walk into a bank and open a bank account without the permission of her husband, if she had one, or her father, or a significant male other. Women were not seen as having personal agency. Today, women are at the forefront of economic growth, you know? So that's really significant. If you look at our history, where we came from in terms of political representation, it was a male-dominated field. Women who aspired to be leaders were considered somehow wayward because it was really considered a male domain. Today, we have women at every level of our governance, at the county governments, in parliament, in the cabinet. I see here we have 2 female governors of the 6 governors that we have in our country. So we're changing the face of what leadership and governance and power looks like. When you talk about indicators in terms of education, maternal health, in terms of economic growth, I think we've made significant growth, and we need to appreciate that. We look at all the hardware that's been there, the roads, the railways, and everything. But even in terms of income generation, I think we've come a long way as Kenyans. So somebody talked about, the young man talked about democracy, the freedom. You know, I really don't think we appreciate the kind of freedom that we have in this country. Angel sang about how Kenyans shouldn't insult their leaders on social media. the freedoms that we have in Kenya, the ability to be able to speak and express yourself. I think this is something that we take for granted because it's not available in many other jurisdictions, but in Kenya we do. And that's why I appreciate this conversation, because it's giving us an opportunity to be able to have a conversation and channel our energies towards talking about the Kenya we want to see beyond Vision 2030, but also to diffuse some of the tensions that are there, because we agree that we're having this conversation within a context of a lot of uncertainty in terms of employment, economic pressures, and all that. So there's also skepticism as to why is this conversation coming at a time like this, just a year before elections. But I think it's important that we have it now. That's why it's important that we have it now. So even the ability to be able to gather here together, to have that conversation, the president calling us as citizens to have a conversation about what the future of our country looks like. I think we've come very far, because usually it's always top down. It's presented to you as citizens, not calling you in to come in. Let's have a dialogue, let's reason together, and let's vision our country together.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. I think it brings me to Betty. Let me come to you next. And, you know, we were at the forefront of a lot of dialogue over the past 20 to 30 years. And maybe one of the most important things about this country is the ability to sit together and listen to each other when we need to, in the most difficult moments. Let's walk through for you, what are you most proud of? And now as this country comes together in this discussion, starts this process, what's the realistic, process that we need to go through? And I think it will be discussed further, but this is not a short journey. This is to tell us what you see, and ideally, where do you want us to land as a country?
Well, thank you. It's on, right? Well, thank you, Julie, and referencing how far we've come in this conversation about the future of the country. And like you, I'm actually very excited that we're having this conversation in this context, because we've had conversations about Kenya in the past, and it's not from the 60s, when we think about the futures work that was done by the NCCK. So Kenyans have been thinking about...
We adapt.
Sorry. Kenyans have been thinking about themselves. We gave ourselves a vision at independence. We gave ourselves the goal of eradicating poverty, disease, and ignorance. And therefore, we've been shaping our futures over different times. We've seen, as James has said, if I think about our childhood, when we grew up, I'm thinking it's my age or slightly older, the differences in our experiences as children then, and where we are and where our children and grandchildren, because now we have grandchildren, are growing up, those are totally different society and a better quality of life. So I think we need to give ourselves credit that we are not where we were in 1963. But we are not where we would like to be. So we've accomplished a lot socially, politically. We've celebrated the Constitution. Economically, we've seen better livelihoods than we experience, education, health. There are many things that we can talk about and celebrate as having accomplished as Kenya. But we are also aware that there are things, we gave ourselves 80%. Somebody might be less generous, James, and say maybe we should give ourselves 70. So 70 gives you an indication of how far you are. And Professor Hino has clearly told us, this is where you could be if you did different things. And I think when we now think about the future, we need to think about not focusing on the things that have worked. We like to look at buildings. We think development is capital projects, roads, which is true, it facilitates that. But there is something within that we need to work on. What sort of economy do we have? we focus a lot on, and we are aware of how unequal our society is. So if you ask me, what should we aspire to? We should aspire to a lot more of an equal society. What are the things that will get us that? Professor Hino points out, but history also points out that hard work, clearly, discipline, integrity are critical for building, as building blocks for the future. Everybody wants to become rich, but how do they want to become rich? And do they become rich at somebody else's expense? We need to fix the institutions that offer equality for Kenyans. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. Still adapting. Okay. Can I just bookmark that when Professor Hino did his presentation, and when you mentioned informal sector, there was an applause that came from the back. So I just want to recognize that's a very big part, I think, of what Kenyans want us to focus on is how to give dignity and opportunity and pathways forward to the informal sector. Let me come to you next, Ian. A lot of what we talked through earlier, you probably didn't live through, right? So when you have the chance to look forward and imagine and dream everything, we have a restless, cynical and tired, kind of disappointed Gen Z and youth population. How do we inspire? How do we rebuild? And what do you see as the future for the country?
All right, thank you so much. My name is Ian Mwita Matiko. I may not have lived to see the Vision 2030 being born back in 2008, but I have been a beneficiary of that vision from the time I was born up until this moment. So I'll say what is working in the present and where I think we are headed as a country and what I envision, what I would want as a Gen Z to be achieved in 2060. What is working currently, I've had the opportunity to work under 3 ministries currently. I have worked under the Ministry of Interior, under PS Raymond. I've worked under the Ministry of PS Fikirini Jacobs, and under the ministry that coordinates Nyota Fund. One of the things that I can say with full confidence that is working is that for the first time in the history of this country, we have had the young generation being brought in conversations, national conversations on matters security. And that is thankful to Jukwaa la Wasomi, which was born last year under the leadership of UCSPAC, which is the Universities and Colleges Students' Peace Association of Kenya. That Jukwaa la Wasomi is working in conjunction with Jukwaa la Usalama under the docket of PS Raymond Amolo. So that is one of the most significant things that I've been able to witness as a young person, because now we are revolutionizing our security to include the very people who are going to take it up later on in the future. The second thing is about Nyota Fund. Now, people may see it as a very small thing, but when you look at it keenly, it is inspiring millions of lives. Because for the first time, we have a president who's thinking about the hustlers out there. This Nyota Fund is revolutionizing the way in which we think, because we don't want just to tell people that we're giving you employment. We want to show them that this is how we are creating these job opportunities for you and inspiring you to a future. And the third one is, when you look at the National Youth Council, NYC, the last time the elections were held were 10 or 14 years ago. For the first time, we had it gazetted this year that the youth are going to elect their council to represent them in terms of government. And that is thankful to PS Fikirini. So that is what I've seen that is working currently. But what do I envision? Which Kenya do I want in 2060? One of the fundamental things that we need to underscore is the Kenya that we are building. We are not merely building Kenya for 2060. We are building a Kenya that we will want to leave behind for generations that are coming in. One of the things that I'd want to highlight is especially the health sector and the education sector. Let me begin with education. We must revolutionize the way in which we educate our people. We must not educate our people to seek for jobs today or to want jobs today, but we should position them to tackle problems that will arise in 2060. And that means we need to bolster our education system. We need to position our people in such a manner that we will not be consuming things from outside, or we will not be consuming knowledge from other states. We will be instead exporting knowledge to other states. We will be inventing and we'll be inventing things and sending them outside. So that means we need to invest more in our education sector. The second sector is health. We cannot be 60, now for 2060 will be 100 years, yeah? We cannot be 100 years old and we are still relying on external aid in terms of medicine, in terms of vaccine, because we are 100 years old. So we should invest in the health sector such that our young scientists, our professional doctors, our brilliant minds can come up with research. That research can be sponsored into the future, and they can dream about a Kenya that can, also innovate. We don't want to go to other states to compete in events. We also want to host those events, and we want to be better at those research competitions. So that is the kind of Kenya that I envision. And if I've been following the mind of the president, when you look at the trajectory that he's trying to build, he's trying to turn Kenya away from consumer country to a producing country, if you look at it keenly. So that is my input for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Festus. Ian, Festus, let me come to you next. You're a leader in your own right. You're doing that in Machakos County. What are you happy about in terms of what Kenya has achieved so far under Vision 2030? And what is your hope for 2063, Kenya at 100?
Thank you, Julie. Is it good morning? Is it good morning? Yes. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Julie. Good morning, my panelists. What has been significant about the achievement of Vision 2030 to us, persons with disabilities, because that is a constituency that I speak for and work for. We've seen enactment of the new Disability Act that has been in the parking lot for a very long time. The act was assented by our dear president last year, August. Was it August? Sometime last year, and that was a really great milestone that spoke to the intentionality of our government in terms of including persons with disabilities in their activities. We've also seen significant efforts by the government, especially in mashinani, whereby nothing can happen without us being on the table and having our voices where conversations are happening. Kudos to the Ngao team and to the other government sectors like the judiciary and other parastatals of government. And the hope that I have, or the hope that I see is, number one, before I go to the hope, can I cite an oversight that I have seen? Because this is a conversation anyway. When we look around this podium, and online as well, we are missing a very critical accessibility format for those that are following online and those that are in this place with hearing impairment. It was an oversight, and I I give it as a recommendation that next time that is looked at critically, because
thank you.
This being a national conversation, then it ought to carry us all to the other side of the river. And the other observation that I have made, I'm moving to my hope. I have also observed that in most of our activities or our events, we are not intentional about including persons with intellectual disabilities. When I speak about persons with intellectual disabilities, is the people that we sometimes shun away from because of their complexity of their disabilities, in that the way they take concept in and the way they give output out is a little bit different from everyone in our midst today. And I believe that is something that in our next roadmap, we should have an intentional way of targeting, really targeting persons with intellectual disabilities and those with autism. The other thing is that I need us to see more formats of communication in our various engagements. I'll give examples. Persons who are short-sighted, that do not see small letters. How inclusive are we when we are projecting?
Even I was struggling.
In our screens, how inclusive was that? And those that use Braille is that format that is going to be accessible to those of us that have gone to school and can use Braille too as a way of communicating to themselves. Again, we have a very forgotten group in the communities that have not been participating in our activities most of the times because of the barriers. The deaf-blind people. We've seen how America has empowered the deaf-blind lawyer. All of us know her. We've seen how she even came to Kenya to inspire us, persons with disabilities, brought in by National Council and brought in to inspire and change a narrative that has been there of persons with deaf blindness are supposed to be left away. Just to ask, how many of us know that we have a language known as tactile? Tactile. How many of us know that? Mr. President, do you know tactile? Do you know how it is used? Please, it is actually embedded in our national book, our reference book, the Constitution of Kenya, whereby it's a mode of communication for those who are deaf, blind. So we'd also want to see that in play, because it is mandatory to carry all of us to the other side of the river. Now, yes. I am going to my hope. the Kenya I hope to see. I hope to see a Kenya that is inclusive, a Kenya that is intentional, a Kenya that is led by us with diverse perspectives and disabilities. We need to be included, not integrated. We don't want integration. We want to be at the center of where conversations are happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the humanity, even in how you started Festus, and you took a moment to recognize and greet us, and you've taken us through a comprehensive view of what's missing and where you need us to go. Thank you so much for that. I want to also just recognize, you mentioned somebody from a different country who inspired you, but we have our own in Kenya, do we not, who is a senator? Honorable Crystal, yes, and I don't know if she's here, but she's incredibly inspiring, and so I just wanted to also mention that. Thank you so much. Let me come to you, Ambassador Ndemo. Again, we were at the front lines of much of the change of Kenya with you. You were right there, and you saw what it took to change a nation. It's not easy to push, to evolve, but you did that. Take us through the learnings you had in delivering Vision 2030, the part you played in development of Kenya, and where you think we really need to be going for 2063.
Thank you, Julie. Let me recognize His Excellency the President, Deputy President, Prime Cabinet, Cabinet Ministers, and all guests and governors I saw here. The question I have to answer it from the problems that I had before we saw the changes. When going to high school, I would board a bus and leave, and my mother would only expect to hear my voice when I came back. There was no communication, there was zero. To get a telephone, Mwangi can testify here, it took so long to get, if you get anything like that. But the government invested in ICT infrastructure. This ICT infrastructure completely changed the way the world works in Kenya. A lot of young people take it for granted when they get their passport within 2, 3, 4 days. For us, it used to be 6 months, 1 year before you got the passport. There are so many other government services that have been digitized since that time. I think 100% of the government services are online. We are able to pay our taxes online. We are able to communicate online. We are doing several things online because of infrastructure. I'm emphasizing this because Hino also said, going forward, we must look at the infrastructure that will take us forward. Today, with the little infrastructure that we have in northern Kenya, a mother takes a smartphone on a child's chest, and through AI, they are able to identify the kid has tuberculosis. The nurse can do that. This is something that used to be done by radiologists and other things. We need to expand that throughout the country. And what I'm saying, what we need going forward from today is actually to build the future infrastructure for AI, because AI is disrupting education, disrupting health, disrupting agriculture, and that we need to have its own infrastructure. And because of geopolitical contestation, there is a problem that we must begin to solve now. That what every country is doing is to build their sovereign AI, but there is a problem which the president knows very well, energy. We need to have energy. We cannot talk about AI going forward without significant amount of energy. I think we're at less than 5,000 megawatts. We probably need another 10,000 megawatts within a very short period. Companies like Microsoft try to invest in that space. We need to work with the private sector and build the infrastructure, the same way we put the fiber in the undersea and also terrestrial to every county, we must invest in the future infrastructure for Kenya's competitiveness. Our education has done very well. Mwangi talked about it. We need to leverage AI because what the studies are showing is that most of us who have been teaching, we teach an average student. But with AI now, we can identify the needs of every child and actually provide the right thing. It is not going to destroy teachers. It's going to facilitate teaching. I would stop here because I can say.
Thank you so much. The simplest way, I think, to understand AI is to see it as a tool. Ni kama jembe, yeah? It doesn't replace the person who needs to do the work. Maybe jembe is wrong in today's environment, but it's a tool. Your Excellency, I do want to come to you before we open to the floor. As a leader, same question. What are you proud of in terms of what we've achieved so far? And where are we going? But as a citizen, as a farmer, where do you really want us to go? Please tell us.
Thank you very much, Julie. And good morning, everybody. Vision 2030 in 2008 became the roadmap for us as a nation to think long-term about our development. Maybe I see some people straining to see. Long-term for us to plan our way into prosperity. And we must commend President Mwai Kibaki and the vision bearers then, who provided a platform for us to put together what today is finally in the sunset years. Vision 2030 has provided a framework for us to figure out our development. It set out that Kenya should be an industrialized nation, middle income, high quality of life in a safe environment. All the targets we set for ourselves, we have been given a review of where we are on the economic pillar, on the social pillar, on the political pillar, and the enablers. And we have been given a scorecard by the Vision 2030 Secretariat. We have done fairly well in many aspects. We've done well in others more than others. We've been given the figures on the political pillar. We are at 80 plus. I think we have an A. And you can see it. We have a new constitution. We have a robust Bill of Rights. We have a democratic state. We have an open society, a rule of law. We have a working judiciary. We have a civil society that is not constrained. And we have made ourselves a very proud nation. In fact, globally, Kenya is recognized as a democratic country. It is part of the reason why in 2023, 24, I paid a visit to America, and the single most important component was the fact that we share in our celebration of freedom and democracy. We have been given indication as to where we are with the economic pillar. In fact, I think of all the pillars, the economic pillar is where we have done not very well, at around 50, I think it was 52, 53%. On the social pillar, we are around 60. We have made progress. Today, we have significantly in our region, we've done very well in terms of paved roads. We have 20,000 kilometers of paved roads. We have a working SGR. We have an expressway. We have dualed some of our roads. We've extended electricity. We now have 10,000 homes. 10 million, sorry. 10 million households going to 11 million households connected to electricity. Our transition on education is significant. We have done very well. But why are we having this conversation? And I want to thank the people of Kenya.